Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Citizens of the world, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of August 21st. And we are recording it on the 19th. That's a Wednesday. And it's just a couple hours before the Cubs and the Sox go at it again. I am wearing my White Sox shirt in hope of a victory. Talk about that next week. Our next guest is someone who I met briefly at a memorial for her father, the one and only Gene Barge, who I got to know while working on Andy Davis films. And his daughter, Gina, is something else in her own right, and she has a new place that we're going to talk about. Good day to you, Gina.
Hi, how are you, Mike?
I'm good, and so glad you joined us. Our music producer, Lynn Orman, told me that you have a new place on Chicago Avenue.
I do. It's new-ish. So we've been, and I can tell you the exact amount of days because it wasn't my idea, right? We've been open for 2 years, 2 months, and 19 days.
Wow. What's its name?
Wax Vinyl Bar and Ramen Shop.
Okay, so that's pretty intriguing. Wax Vinyl, and I understand. I thought it was a jazz club, and then I learned that people come in and they play vinyl.
My husband's been a DJ since he was 12, and he's a vinyl purist. And so he always wanted to open a place. And so 3 months after our wedding, he sprung on me that he'd found a place to acquire. And I was like, really? Completely not my idea. It's a fun place, though. It's really a good hub for people who love music, love vinyl. We have only vinyl DJs. We're open Wednesday through Sunday. And, people love the vibe. So
it's a Wax Vinyl Bar and Ramen Shop at 1549 West Chicago.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the ramen part of this.
Okay, that's interesting, too. So we're sort of it's like a circular homage, right? So we're paying homage to Japanese kisas, which are listening rooms. And we went to Tokyo in advance of opening this place and just experienced all the different kinds of listening rooms that range from one guy in a room with one turntable and 10,000 records, and he knows exactly where everything is, to places that are closer to ours, which are larger places that people gather. They're, a lot of them have beautiful hi-fi sound systems. We don't have a hi-fi sound system. We have our sound system's been designed differently, but they range. And what's interesting about it is they pay homage to our music. It was kind of weird because we went into one of the kisas when we visited Tokyo, and my husband asked if they had anything by my father. And I was like, they're not going to know who my dad is. And he went straight to the albums where he had some of his most obscure sax solos. And I was like, wow, I don't even know if I've ever heard that one. So they really know their music over there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have an event coming up there on the 26th. Why don't you tell us about that before we grill you more on your own life and your dad's?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, Billy Branch, who is an old friend of the family. A father knew him from the blues world. He just released an album. I think he released it a while ago, but we're doing a listening party at Wax. And on Wednesday, we open at 5. And we will be playing the record. And Billy will be maybe giving a little talk. I'm not sure how he's going to plan to format it, but I'm sure it will be colorful because it is Billy.
Well, if you all go to our YouTube page and you punch in the name, you'll find our interview with Billy Branch, or our most recent interview. There's a couple of them when he's been on the show. Well, how many of these events do you do? Is it a regular thing where you bring in someone of some renown, or is it just younger DJs spinning their records?
So we have times when we bring people in that want to do their release parties, and we love that because more people are now releasing on vinyl. For a while, nobody did. And this gives them a good connection with the artist because it's something for them to sign. Nobody signs a flash drive, right? So having albums really gives them an opportunity to talk about it. You get that vinyl sound. So we've had artists that have ranged from, we had R&B singer Simone Green in recently. We have had Twilight Tone in. He released a single and from one of his productions. And so now we're having Billy. So we'd love to have artists come in and showcase their work. And then the rest of the time we have DJs every night.
And is there a cover charge to get in?
There is not. We're a restaurant. So we don't have a cover charge. We just ask that people come in and enjoy our food and our drinks and enjoy the vibe and the space.
Well, on the restaurant front now, I started eating ramen in these little packs for about 30 cents a piece. And I've discovered through my son, Cadian, who is in the band Twin Peaks, he, during the pandemic, started doing a lot of cooking around the house. And I realized there are some really fancy ramen out there. Tell us a little bit about the food you're serving. It's funny, we don't really market it this way, but our food is very inclusive in the sense that a lot of it starts off as vegan and gluten-free. The ramen is no different. So our ramen can be very different in the sense that we have rice noodles and we give it a little twist. The food is a little twist on, it's Asian, it's Japanese adjacent is the way I describe the food, because we infuse our own little thing into it. So we have things like collard green egg rolls and our ramen. Collard green egg rolls.
We do.
I like that.
We have those. The wings are a fan favorite. And we created a Japanese inspired barbecue sauce that we toss the wings in. People love the wings. People love a dish called Tokyo shrimp, which is in the same barbecue sauce as fried shrimp served over rice. And my husband actually developed that dish. So we have fun with the food.
It looks like they've got a menu for everyone. You've got seafood, you've got wings, you've got vegan options, vegetarian options. So it does look like a inclusive menu. I'm just looking at your website with all the upcoming events and all the tasty treats on offer.
Yeah.
What drew you to the Japanese influence on all this food?
It was because we're paying homage to the kisas, which are the listening rooms in Japan. So we thought we'd just kind of keep it authentic and see, well, it's not completely authentic because we're putting our own spin on it, but we thought that we'd infuse it and make it interesting.
Well, Gina, tell us now a little bit about yourself and what it's like growing up with a dad who was in the thick of all things musical here in Chicago.
It's funny. Growing up, it really didn't feel different to me because it's all I knew. So I would grow up. My mother would say, hey, go with your dad today, which usually meant spending time in the studio with my father. And as long as I had a book, I was good because then I could be quiet, according to my father. And then when I started meeting all of these people, I understood really the gravity of his talent and what he was able to do from a production and arranging standpoint and as a performer himself. So that was kind of fun growing up.
How about giving our listeners and our viewers a little rundown of some of the people he played with, some of the tunes he's involved with, etc. Just run with it. Yeah.
So he produced Buddy Guy's first album. So that's one of his claims to fame. Buddy's an old friend of the family. And he worked with Natalie Cole for some years, primarily as an arranger, sometimes as a producer. And he wrote a couple of songs that she released. He played with the Rolling Stones as a saxophone player because he was primarily a saxophonist. He's primarily a saxophone player. And that's how he would describe himself as a sax man. And then for years, he played with a group called Big Twist and the Mellow Fellows.
I remember them.
Which evolved into the Chicago Rhythm and Blues Kings, which he performed with that band until he was probably 90. He was performing in blues clubs. And then he passed away at the age of 98. And we were fortunate to have him for a really long time.
Yeah, that's a good one. I first met him when Andy Davis was making the movie Stony Island, and he's prominent in that movie. I'm also in that movie, beating up Corliss Leachman's real life son and smashing saxophones. It's painful to watch. But Natalie Cole was one of the people, or a bunch of the people who played with her were involved in that movie.
That band, that was, and then you also had people like Phil Upchurch who were involved. Phil, we just lost Phil recently.
Oh, I didn't know that. I see Phil's son walking by here pretty often. Oh, I didn't know that he died. Yeah, he's in the scene that I'm in.
Yeah, Phil was great. Ronnie Barron, who else was? Oh, Ray Don Chong, a very young Susanna Hoffs was in that film. So that Stony Island gave a lot of people their start.
Tell us about the other movies your dad was in that you remember.
Well, he was in Stony Island, all the Andy Davis movies, right? So Code of Silence, The Package, The Fugitive, Above the Law. I used to know all of these completely off the top of my head.
Chain Reaction, right? So tell us about yourself and because you do some journalism. You've been to Second City. Fill us in. We've got some time here.
I live kind of a bifurcated life, right? So I have a very corporate day job. So by day, I'm an executive recruiter. And I work with a lot of like private equity firms and placing C-suite executives. So I place a lot of CEOs. And on the other side of my life, I was a journalist. I wrote for a Tribune paper for a while. And I also love to do comedy writing. So I was at the Second City for a while. I went through the stand-up program. I went through the comedic sketch writing program. And any chance I get to do something like that, I will. And then I also have done production. So I worked on the Godfathers and Sons of the Blues. Martin Scorsese did about a 6 or 7 part series on the blues that came out a long time ago. That was fun because I got to work with my friends and my dad's friends. We remade Electric Muddy Waters' Manish Boy song with some rappers. So it was, at the time, so fortunate that everyone was still alive. So at the time, the band was the original. It was my dad, it was Pete Cozy, Morris Jennings, Louis Satterfield, and Phil Upchurch. And they redid that track, but included Chuck D, Common, Questlove, and a couple of other members of the Roots. So it was a really lovely compilation. And I was a field producer on that. So I was really fortunate to be a part of that project.
You know, I'm trying to remember what was the band your dad was with that when he was young and they were touring the East Coast, North Carolina?
Well, one of his first singles, his first hit record was with Gary U.S. Bonds. That's the one, yeah. That was Quarter to Three. And so that is the song that a lot of people know him for. That was released in, I believe, 1961. And it was a number one hit.
What's your favorite tune of your dad's?
My favorite that he's written is called Love is a 5-letter word, and that 5 letters is M-O-N-E-Y. So, yeah. that song's been covered by Van Morrison, and he played it a lot with Chicago Rhythm and Blues Kings.
And do you play an instrument?
I was trained in classical piano from the age of 5 through college. My father would tell you that I didn't play because I didn't practice. And I never really took to improv piano so much. I was very classical. So it was different than my creative talent manifested more in writing than it did in music.
What's your fondest memory of your dad and being with your dad and or your mom?
Well, that's a good question.
That's why I asked it.
I know. That's a really great question. I think, I remember, what I remember? Just going to the premieres of the films that Andy did was always fun because we got to dress up as a family. Andy would always send a limo, and I found that fascinating as a small child. And it was fun to go and to see my dad on the screen. Anytime that I could go, I made a point of making it to all of his gigs because you never know, I always said, you never know what it's going to be his last one. Right. And I was fortunate enough to have been at his last gig. But just, I love to always, even though the songs were usually the same, whatever, I always made a point to at least stop by his sets whenever he would play, just to stay connected.
I think it's interesting. You mentioned the remake of the song with like what is now the older generation of hip hop artists, and now you've got this new generation of DJs coming into wax, vinyl bar, ramen shop. So you're kind of continuing that musical legacy over generations. And I think we often I mean, Chicago's kind of funny. Sometimes we kind of celebrate that, and sometimes it's almost out of sight, out of mind. I mean, I don't think younger people are maybe as familiar with Chess Records and its legacy as maybe you'd expect. And the city maybe doesn't make as much of it locally as you'd expect.
It's actually surprising how people don't understand the blues connection. My father moved here to Chicago to work for Chess Records. And he was a staff producer, and he was able to just grab people walking down the hall like Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf. He worked with the really young Minnie Riperton. He worked with Coco Taylor. He's the one who did the sax solo for Wang Dang Doodle. And I think it's because, yeah, I know, that's one of my favorite of his sax solos, actually. But it's fascinating when you really think about it and think about all of the firepower that was in that building. But you wanted to talk about Like a Ship for a second, didn't you?
I did. When I was getting ready for the show today, I remembered that your dad had been involved with Reverend Barrett, T.L. Barrett, and the Youth for Christ Choir album, yes. Which, I love gospel music. I remember as a kid, I went to Madison Square Garden. I saw Mahalia Jackson, Swan Silvertones, Dixie Hummingbirds. And, sometimes when I'm listening to WLUW, right before and after the Live from the Heartland show, there are gospel shows. And somewhere I heard this tune, Like a Ship Out on the Water, which is just beautiful. Tell us a little bit about it.
So what's interesting is Like a Ship didn't necessarily become relevant for me until recently. My father, first of all, had a really strong background in gospel. After Chess, he went to Stax and ran their gospel record label. So he was traveling back and forth to Tennessee. He also ran the Operation Breadbasket Band with Operation Push. Okay. So he was a big fixture there for several years. So gospel was really always a love of his. So Like a Ship, what's interesting about that record is that DJs have gotten a hold of it now. And my father had like a gold mine of vinyl in his house across the street from where I live, actually. He lived across the street from me. And I went, I put him there. He didn't love it at first. But I went down to his lower level, which is where his records were, and I pulled these two records. And so Like a Ship, the original press, which is now very valuable, and one has not even been opened, right? So there's one that's mint condition. I'm going to sell it one day. And then the other, when I opened the record and pulled it out, there were handwritten lyrics of Like a Ship because he worked with TL. So it was his handwriting. It was T.L. Barrett's handwriting, and they were writing out the lyrics of Like a Ship, and that's included in this record that I found. So I have a real collector's item on my hands.
And you're going to sell it all off or hold on to it? Who knows?
Spin it at the Wax Vinyl one night.
Well, we don't. There are now secondary presses of it, so we don't use those, but we keep it, and my husband and I have different ideas as to what will happen to it. I like for artifacts to be out in the world. I don't like to hoard things. And, if somebody is excited about it and they're a collector, then I'm like, I'll think about it. But he doesn't want to sell it. So we have two of them. We have two original presses. One is still in the plastic and the other has the lyrics. So it's kind of funny that's making, my father was himself surprised that was making a resurgence. He goes, you care about that record? Yeah,
it's great. I think we'll include it in this interview with either coming in or going out. Gina Barge, it's really wonderful talking to you. We got about a minute left. How about you give us a little pitch about your restaurant and your upcoming event with Billy Branch?
Yeah, please come out. If you don't come any other time, please come out on Wednesday to hear, the Blues Is My Biography, which is Billy Branch's latest release. Wax Vinyl Bar and Ramen Shop is located in the heart of West Town. We feature great food, even better music, and even better company, if you can believe that. And so come on out and join us. We have a great menu of signature specialty cocktails and food. We have something for everyone. So don't be shy. Come out and say hello.
Before you know it, Euan and I, and maybe our engineer Hal, we're all going to come over there and live it up.
I hope you do.
You'll be there. We'll call you.
I would love to see you. I'm always there.
And how can people reach you if they want to be in touch?
Waxvinylbar@gmail.com is my best. I'm always in that email. Waxvinylbar@gmail. And that hits me directly. Also on Instagram, we're Wax Vinyl Bar. And we're also on TikTok. So you can check out some of our videos there too.
TikTok. Okay. Thanks so much, Gina.
Thanks, Michael.
And thanks, everyone.